Hey folks, Sean Noble from Light Beer Dark Money. I wanted to just remind you about one of our sponsors, Americans for Prosperity Arizona. I want to give you a little bit of background on Americans for Prosperity, why they are such an important organization. They achieve policy reforms at the local level through a process which they've developed, which is pretty basic if you hear it. They provide policy solutions based on proven principles. They organize communities to bring people together. They educate, train, and mobilize concerned citizens to take action. They advocate for the policy reforms, and then they hold the public officials accountable for those policy reforms. It's a very simple process. Go to americansforprosperity.org, learn more about them, and thank them for supporting our show, Light Beer Dark Money. Thanks. Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I am Chris Clements.
And we are Thursday before Election Day. And you'll notice we've got our Dodger gear on. That's, if you didn't see the previous episode, we're doing a double episode today. We had a little episode about the Dodgers winning the World Series. Hopefully you'll watch or listen to that one.
Beautiful day all the way around.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Beautiful day in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So, man, a lot has happened in the last since
last
we
week.
last met.
Yeah. And lots going to happen this weekend.
Yes. So, did you know that half the country is just a big pile of garbage?
Apparently, we are garbage.
We're garbage.
We're garbage. You don't look like garbage.
I know.
I don't look like garbage.
So, obviously,
and we're not necessarily like, MAGA Trump supporters by any stretch. But I mean, I took Biden's comment to mean like if you even support what the policies he believes in.
Well, and it's
not just the MAGA thing.
It goes back
to
MAGA. It goes back to Hillary and the deplorables. It goes back to Obama and the clinging to their guns and religion. There is disdain for average Americans from the elites.
Oh, completely. And
that stuff seeps through on occasion.
You think?
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, do you think that calling the former president of the United States Hitler and a fascist continuously, and then moving into calling his supporters garbage?
Yeah.
Is that a sound political strategy?
No, but
you're a strategist.
Here's the thing. So the Nazi, the Hitler. I went back. I'm in the process of doing an op-ed about basically saying whatever happens, we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
the world will move on. The country's not going to fall. Because if you go back. Every Republican candidate for president, and I'm being dead serious, every single Republican candidate for president since Barry Goldwater has been accused of being either a Nazi, someone like Hitler, or a fascist.
Yes.
Every single one of them.
I'm so glad you've done that research.
Every single one of them.
I look back in the same stuff, and I was like, this is amazing.
On the flip side, every single Democratic presidential candidate since LBJ was running and then dropped out, has been called a communist, a Marxist, or a socialist. And guess what? We've had 6 Republican presidents and 5 Democrat presidents since 1964. We're still a democratic republic. We're not a socialist country, and we're not a fascist country. We're not a dictatorship. So clearly, all of this, repeat of the same vile, discussion is just that. It's just rhetoric.
It's fear mongering at its highest.
And our
order.
side does it as much as their side.
Well,
and
Comrade Kamala, which actually kind of fits. To be honest with you.
So but when the president of the United States calls half the country garbage. That has some impact.
And then they try to
walk
wordsmith it with an apostrophe.
The apostrophe was. I'm like, no. That we all know what he saw. We all saw the video. You can't gaslight us on this kind of thing. So
okay, but let me ask you a question. Does that go into my revised October surprise?
I think it might. I do. I actually think it might.
So she's there on the ellipse saying pretty much nothing.
Well, she's
nothing about nothing.
Trying to
means
relitigate
nothing.
January 6th.
Yeah, she's there on the ellipse where Donald Trump had his famous January 6th speech and told everybody to go to the Capitol peacefully, and some people didn't. And but the speech was nothing about nothing means nothing. And then all of a sudden he breaks in on this. He was on a Zoom interview.
Well,
and calls Donald Trump supporters garbage.
Yeah, I mean, what is interesting to me,
and that becomes the news cycle.
Well, yeah, it completely
Kaboom.
swamps her.
Nobody talks about her speech.
No,
that becomes the news cycle, and he's done it 3 times now.
3 times. This is the 3rd time he's stepped all over her, and this was the most significant because one, who in the world scheduled a campaign event with Biden to be happening while she's giving her big closing argument speech? I mean, that seems nuts.
His people did.
Well, maybe, but her campaign would have had to sign off on that, I would think.
Yeah,
and then
maybe.
I mean, and literally, he is within spitting distance of where she's standing. He's sitting in the old, in the White House, which was, a few hundred yards, not even a few hundred, a couple hundred yards from where she was standing at the podium.
I know.
That's
why.
I mean, I think you might. It would be the ultimate vindication for Joe Biden if Kamala loses, and he can say, "Well, I told you I was the only one who could beat him, and we'll never know."
And let me ask you this: do you think within the electorate, on the Democratic side, there's still a lot of bad blood within people who absolutely? I mean, there's people out there who absolutely support Joe Biden, and who have bad blood towards Harris.
I think
how it all went about.
Yeah, I think I doubt it's.
It didn't come out in the convention.
No, I think it's a small group of people, and it's at high levels. It's the Biden inner circle, and Biden loyalists in D.C. I don't think it bleeds to Democratic voters. I think they're trying to move forward with her. But this doesn't help. I mean, there are so few people left to persuade. I mean, it's like 3%.
Is it 3? I heard one statistic today that it's more like 6 still.
Maybe.
I mean,
it's a minuscule
There's a
amount.
dedicated, we've talked about it before, there's a dedicated 6% of the electorate that wake up on election day and go, oh, there's an election.
Well, I'm not even talking about the indifference. I'm literally talking about the people who are like, I'm not sure which way to go.
Yeah.
This is not going to help Kamala.
No.
This will be a net negative.
No. And
so if you're just keeping score, it's like, well, okay, and it's hard. It's hard to.
In fact, your friend Frank Luntz was saying that same
right?
thing. Yeah, he made some comment, something I read, where he's saying this is not good. This is in the focus groups that we do with the persuadables. This is not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
This kind of proves what everybody thinks about the elites, about the Democrats look down on Middle America, on flyover country. And that's why they're pursuing the politics that they do. So we'll see if it has any effect on Tuesday.
Right.
And also it suppresses it increases enthusiasm on the right, and it kind of suppresses turnout on the left.
Maybe I don't know that I would go that far. They're pretty motivated. I think the turnout's going to be pretty spectacular. I think the issue is whether active Democrats are going to turn out, no matter what. I think the thing that makes the difference in this election is whether the low propensity Republican-leaning voters actually come out. And I think that the stuff that Trump is doing probably appeals to that. His reaction, getting in the dump truck or the garbage truck in Wisconsin and then wearing the orange vest at the rally and talking about that. I thought that was very endearing. I mean, I don't find Trump very endearing, but I thought that discussion.
This goes back to what we talked about last week, and that is he is doing some things that he never would have done in the past. And kudos to the people who are handling him to encourage him to do things and make him more human, more relatable, and taking what could be a negative and making it a positive.
Yeah.
And trolling the other side to where it makes them seem more crazy.
Well, I mean, the McDonald's thing.
He did a press release in the dump truck.
Yeah, press conference. Yeah,
Excuse me. Press conference, not a release. Press conference. He walked into the dump truck, which was emblazoned with Trump vans, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the kind of stuff that and there's been Democratic commentary saying, is this Trump doing his Dukakis moment? I was like, dude, this is not. You are not getting it. This is these people live in such a bubble. If they think that something like that somehow is a gaffe, I mean, this is a smart political move.
No, Tim Walz handling a shotgun was a Dukakis moment.
I don't think he handled it.
No, him trying to load a shotgun, that was the Dukakis moment. You guys need to get your filters straight and understand, what's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't go hunting with that guy.
So I don't know if I
or
said
Dick Cheney, who's
right.
Maybe Dick Cheney. Maybe he went to that school of.
I think it was Baseball Crank on Twitter said, had the best line ever. Is that these guys? Well, actually, it was after there's some candidate. I don't know where he was, but Adam Kinzinger was there, and they're shooting.
Oh, and somebody got shot.
Yeah, and a reporter got a shot on a ricochet, and Dan McLaughlin said they take this Cheney endorsement very seriously.
Imagine that.
I don't know if I've said on the podcast. I think I have that. I remain where I am. So it's Thursday, so we're a few days away. We're 5 days away.
Yeah.
I still think that this is either a very narrow Kamala win, where she gets the blue wall states and maybe Nevada. So it's either 270 or 276. Or it is a landslide for
Trump. And you're going to know early, I think.
I don't know that we'll know early.
You'll see the wave early unless they, do something.
I'm actually not sure of that, because we don't really know because I don't know when Pennsylvania can't even start counting the early ballots until Election Day. So we're really not. I mean, it'll look. And here's the issue to keep in mind as you watch this. And this is, I wish I would. Maybe we'll do a quick episode right before the election where we can lay out what to watch for.
Can we do that, Robert?
Maybe.
Election Day episode?
Well, at least something that's so you understand how to watch the returns, so you don't get sucked into.
So you don't turn it off and go to bed and wake up the next morning.
Because the fact is that Pennsylvania is going to look good for Trump in their first returns, because it'll be the Election Day voters. But the mail returns will start to come in, and that is going to change the results. Yeah. Now, will it change the outcome? I don't know.
It all depends.
All depends. Like I said, it could.
Here in Arizona, we'll have several races that won't be called for several weeks.
But we will have. But I do think that So here's the thing to watch. Crazy as it sounds, Arizona could be the first swing state to be called. Hear me out here. If early ballots are released and Trump is
just like Fox News did,
right? And they ended up being right. But here's the thing: early ballots get released. If Trump is down 5, or if Trump leads, Arizona's done. He won, because there's no way that late drop-offs and Election Day votes are going to go against Trump. So
that's the key part. There's been a lot of, I think Nate Silver's been talking about. There's been a lot of discussion. How do you read the early voting tallies, which are skewing Republican? Are these people that are just voting early that would normally vote on Election Day, or these new voters, or these people who are voting, or Republicans who might have changed their vote? It's hard to say.
Yeah, well, here in Arizona, I think it's just we're getting more back to normal, which was that used to be that Republicans crushed early voting here in Arizona, and then Trump came along, and 2016 it was fine.
Yeah,
but
he discouraged everybody from doing it,
and so it's now getting more back to normal, where Republicans have an advantage. Now, it just so happens that what we're seeing in the early ballots returns in Arizona is that, yeah, we're cannibalizing some Election Day voters. I don't agree with the way that that's termed, because getting the vote in earlier is better, in my opinion. But we're getting there's quite a bit of low propensity
Yeah.
Republican ballots coming in.
Well, and some of those low propensity voters are people that you would think would vote, like hunters, like evangelicals. There was some statistic that I saw the other day that like 40 million evangelicals, people who identify as evangelicals, don't vote.
Yeah.
They're going to sit it out because they don't like either candidate because of their personal failings,
Right.
which I get, but you need to weigh that a little bit more closely.
Well, I mean, it's a free country. They can do it or not.
Yeah, I understand that.
One of the things I posted on Twitter because there's a lot of discussion about this, how do you interpret this and this and that, and those are all very much at the like very close to the margins.
Yeah.
And what I pointed out was that in 2016 there were 90,000. Now, historically, in 2012, just to go back one, there were about 15,000 ballots that were cast that left the president line blank. No write-in, no nothing. It was just about 15,000. In 2016, it was 88,336. 88,336 ballots, where the line was blank. There were 18,000 write-ins. And the Libertarian, who was Gary Johnson, who typically gets about 12 or 15,000 votes, got 106,000 votes. So there was definitely some I can't vote for Hillary, I can't vote for Trump, so I'm either voting for the Libertarian, I'm writing somebody in, or I'm leaving it blank.
Or the Green Party candidate. Or whoever.
Well, the Green Party candidate, actually, Jill Stein, she got 17,000 votes, or maybe 14,000. I'll have to look it up. The point is that between third-party votes, write-ins, and blank, it was a pretty big number. Then in 2020, there were about 60,000 that were blank, and not nearly as many write-ins as there was in 2016. And Trump lost. And my theory has been that of the 88,000 plus the third-party candidate voters who did not vote for Trump and did not vote for Hillary, a lot of them decided, I can vote for Biden because he said he's going to be the adult. He said that he's going to make things more normal. He seems like a pretty stable guy. They're just that thinking. And so people who could not stomach voting for Hillary could stomach voting for Biden. Now, so the question is, where do those people go? And my theory is they're going to either go back to blank or they're going to vote for Trump. Because if you did not vote for Hillary in 2016 and then you voted for Biden in 2020, you're not going back to Harris. You're either leaving a blank or you're going, I don't think.
Well, I mean, in terms of the policies that have been pursued over the last 4 years, Trump has been running these ads about, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And they're really powerful ads.
Yeah.
And they were blanketing after the World Series last night. And I looked at it, I go, that's the best closing argument you can make right now. And if you want more of the same, then vote for Harris.
Right.
Feel free. It's just my opinion is it's just going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So
but
I understand people who are like, I can't vote for Trump. I can't vote for. I mean, I get it. I know some of those people, and I get it. And their arguments are totally sound.
Leave it blank or write in somebody.
Yeah,
but don't vote for Harris.
Yeah, I mean, things will get worse.
I mean, the point is that you basically, if you leave it blank, it's like a half vote.
Yeah.
Right? But if you vote for Harris over Trump, that actually creates a problem.
Yeah.
If you can't vote for Trump, fine. Don't vote for Harris.
That's our recommendation of the day.
So that, I think that Trump wins Arizona. I've been saying that for a while.
And Harris is pulling money out of North Carolina. It was reported.
I saw that.
And moving it to Virginia.
And
New Hampshire.
Yeah. There are people who say that Virginia, New Hampshire, and New Mexico could actually be in play. I tend to think that we get a little bit, aggressive in our reach. I might be wrong. I mean, if my theory of it tips towards Trump in the blue wall states, that may very well carry over to others. And it is, we talked about this back in June. I want to remind our listeners about this when we had former Congressman Quayle and, oh my gosh, why am I spacing on his partner's name? Kevin Youre. Former Congressman Youre from Kansas. That was the first time we had somebody on the podcast that speculated that there's a chance that Trump could get the popular vote. Now, this is before Biden.
That's before Biden dropped
out.
But her negatives have gone back up.
Well, and the thing is,
his positives have gone up since he's been hawking fries and driving trash trucks.
Right, garbage trucks.
So it's an interesting dynamic.
And what I've said is that you saw Biden slipping against Trump, then you saw Kamala replace him, and she gets the sugar. What I remember, we called it a sugar high.
It's all joy. It's all about the joy.
And now it's normalizing, and so the trend looks like Trump is on the upswing. And what's happening is getting closer to where it was when Biden dropped out.
Well, and the narrative has changed because he looks more joyful and she looks more angry.
Oh my gosh, he definitely looks like
he looks like he's having a blast. That podcast he did with Joe Rogan, I actually listened to the entire thing the other day because I had some time. It was great. He was great, and I guess Rogan tried to get her in the studio, and she
didn't.
She wanted him to fly and do an hour, and it was going to be heavily monitored. And he's like, "No, that's not what we do here." And that shows a lot too. There's 40 million views on YouTube.
That's amazing.
40 million.
That's amazing.
If he wants to come here, that'd be great. We'd enjoy it.
We'll go there.
Yeah, we'll meet you.
And he's taken some criticism for not going to her, but.
Rogan?
I don't think he's ever done that. I mean,
Rogan's big enough to where, and he's fair enough. I mean, he has everybody on his show. Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Socialists, whatever.
And he's all over the place.
Yeah, and I think the way he does his podcast is, and I listen to some, I don't listen to others, but I think he creates a curiosity for what they're saying and gives them some validity to where it's a discussion, and people enjoy it no matter what.
Well, he
did that with Trump, and it was great.
He's a very curious guy who has weaved his way through a variety of positions, which is fine. Yeah. I mean, he's as we all should. We're all nuanced people.
Well, and what he said about interviewing Harris was really interesting. He just said, "Listen, I just want to have a discussion with her and get to know her as a person.
Yeah,
it's not really about the politics. Let's just have a discussion. But it's 3 hours." And you got to be able to
2 or 3,
and there are no parameters. Nothing.
Well, and that's I mean,
and that's the way it should be,
right? And it is a little bit astounding to me. Like, yes, do I think that Joe Biden could go on and do 3 hours? No. Hillary Clinton could.
Sure.
There's a bunch of people who could. I don't understand. I mean, But Kamala is a human being. I mean, it's not like she couldn't sit there and, have the discussion.
Sean, she's a robot. Let's just right now. She's a human being, and she has failures and foibles and everything else. She does not want to talk about those things. She does not want to have an honest conversation either with Rogan or just the American people about who she is, how she came to be, or anything else. And that's what's, I think, is shining through. Who's the real Kamala Harris? And by the way, this whole pronunciation thing is a perfect example of that. Everyone has pronounced her name differently. So is she. It's all sort of a ruse.
She has?
Oh, yeah. And it's all sort of a ruse. And so who is she? And you know who Trump is. Love him, hate him, want to,
not care, whatever.
Not care. You get what you get. And with her, nobody knows what they're getting. I think that's what's shining through in these last days of the election. People don't know who she is. And the things that have defined her from her time in San Francisco, her time in working for Willie Brown, she doesn't want to talk about that, and then ascending, barely to the AG's office and some of the things she pursued. She doesn't want to talk about who she is, and that's a problem.
Well, I mean, I think that you can go back. Every election this happens. You get to the results, and then you say, okay, well, what were the things that caused things to happen the way they did? I think her skipping Joe Rogan is going to be seen as a
huge
big factor if she ends up losing. The garbage comment by Biden
Yeah.
is going to have a factor. And the thing that's interesting is that we tend to focus on the things that happen right before the election, but there are things that have happened 2, 3, 4 months ago that have impact on this. I still think the assassination attempt on Trump, as much as it's been memory holed by the media, there are people who still think about that.
Oh, of course.
And that has some impact. That he's got that quality of fighter, of courage, and that's going to matter.
Well, I mean, being intellectually honest about that moment in history is important. That was incredible what happened.
Yeah.
First of all, it was unbelievable the circumstances that led up to that, which we still haven't gotten a full reporting of, and won't probably unless he's elected. And then his immediate reaction and the way he was, I've never seen anything like it.
No,
nobody had.
I mean,
left, right, or indifferent. You've got to look at that and be like, "Holy smokes!"
I mean, we literally have never seen anything like that, because either the assassination attempt was successful when it came to JFK, when it came to RFK, when it came to Martin Luther King Jr., or in Reagan's case, it was unknown because they got him out of there so quickly. There was no chance to like. What's the
Yeah.
Now Reagan enjoyed a boost of confidence as a result of surviving an assassin's bullet, and he got the American public had some sympathy.
Sure.
There, it's pretty interesting how little that is playing out for Trump in the media, but I think it is an undercurrent for a lot of voters.
Well, the media is lockstep with the Harris campaign, and that's been obvious from the beginning.
Yeah.
It was obvious after the debate when the media all of a sudden discovered that Joe Biden was non-compos mentis, and there was this immediate call for him to leave the race and hand it over to someone. And then it has been reported that his endorsement of his VP was not expected on that Monday. That there were other plans that
we know that
Miss Pelosi
we know
and
that
Mr. Obama had for the race.
We know
and
Pelosi, Obama, and Schumer wanted to go to more of an open convention because I think they understood that you can't campaign on the other side being a threat to democracy and then completely undermine the democratic process.
Yeah, which is what they did. Yeah.
So
it was a coup. And now I think what you're seeing, as I said before, I thought the October surprise would be them fully pushing him out and getting him to resign. And he has since consistently over the last month tried to torpedo her candidacy in various ways.
Well, and I mean, it is.
And can you blame him?
No, not really. Not with.
I mean,
not
this
with
guy's
who
been
he
involved
is.
in politics for 50 years. He was brutal to everyone. He was absolutely brutal, and he had the most brutal thing done to him of all.
Here's something that I find interesting. I'm seeing a lot of this on X and other places. Drudge has covered it. That there's a freak out about how many women are voting in comparison to men, and that because naturally people think, well, that's going to help Harris. Yeah, maybe, but I mean that's been the case for years.
Yeah.
Women have outvoted men for years, and not by a small amount. I mean, it's typically 4 or 5%.
Yeah.
So, you see these comments, oh, you can't let these women outvote you guys. You got to go vote. I mean, they always do, and they probably will this time. But not every woman is voting for Kamala. I mean, we know that.
And we certainly know
and
that.
Definitely not every guy is voting for Trump because we got a bunch of...
Yeah, we got a bunch of white guys for Harris. roaming
we got all
around.
kinds of guys for Harris.
Yeah, but that, for whatever reason, they
Republicans
decided
for
to make
Harris,
that a thing.
white guys for Harris.
Yeah.
Black guys for Harris. I don't know.
Those are some key areas where I think is going to be interesting to see after next Tuesday. Is that where does the Hispanic vote break? Where does the African American vote break?
I'm glad you brought up the Hispanic vote because the whole reason we have this discussion about President Biden talking about half the country being garbage is because of a guy named Tony Hinchcliffe. I'll call him. I mean, he's a comedian, but he's an insult comedian.
Yeah.
You know, he's the kind of guy that you go to a roast.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a roasting comedian.
Yeah. So he excels on what might be the lowest common denominator of comedy, which is just insulting people. You know, I've seen him open for other acts, and you know, he's irreverent. Some of his stuff is pretty funny. Some of it's cringy.
I never had heard of him until the other day. To be
and
honest with you, I don't follow that.
how in the world he ended up on the stage at a Trump rally is a mystery to me. I would never, in 100 million years, put that kind of a comedian. I mean, it's one thing to put a comedian, not always a great idea, but definitely not that style of comedy.
Yeah, hopefully
Anyway.
they don't have that in Glendale tonight.
Yeah. So he says the comment about Puerto Rico being a floating pile of garbage. And, you know, the whole world melts down saying, oh, this Trump thinks the Puerto Ricans are terrible, blah, blah, blah. He's going to lose the Puerto Rican vote in Pennsylvania. And, you know, people are putting out graphs of how many Puerto Rican voters by state. And then I read an article about how Trump is performing with Hispanics in Arizona and Nevada.
Yeah.
And they point out the Puerto Rican thing that this comedian said. And I was like, this reporter doesn't get it.
Well,
the vast majority of Hispanics in Arizona are Mexican American.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
not a lot of love lost for Puerto Ricans.
And quite frankly, if you were to talk to Puerto Ricans who are now here in this country, they would not necessarily disagree.
Well, that's why they left.
That's why they left. It's not a great place, and
I
it was
don't
a poor
know.
it was a poor opening act. I think Don Jr. has something to do with that, is what I heard.
Oh, is that right? That's so stupid.
Yeah,
Boy, talk about someone
that
who-
makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because he's an online bro.
But and unfortunately, it takes away from the rest of the rally, which was not
and Trump actually
a Nazi rally.
Trump actually did
which
a
was
pretty
so
good job at that
stupid.
rally.
He did a great job at that rally.
It was
as
not
did
your-
Tulsi Gabbard, as did RFK Jr. And it's just it's one of these unforced errors that somebody allowed that guy to do that, and I don't know.
Yeah,
And then it kind of blows. That becomes the narrative. But then, for a couple days, here comes
then
Joe
the president of the
Biden.
United States.
Here comes Joe Biden.
In for the rescue.
In for the rescue. And nobody is talking about Kamala Harris's speech.
Yeah.
In fact, most people are talking about how bland and uninspiring it was, if they're being intellectually honest. Most people are talking about the fact that Joe Biden called us all garbage.
Yeah.
And that's not going to play well.
No. So go vote if you haven't voted already.
So do we have a little bit of time to talk about Arizona?
Oh, sure.
We should probably talk about
yeah,
Arizona.
so quickly.
Real quickly, do not vote for Prop 140.
That's right.
Do
You don't
not
wanna do that.
believe Chucky Coughlin and his merry men that this thing is going to rescue democracy in Arizona. There,
Just
I've
look
said
at
it.
California.
Look
You
at
don't want
California,
California,
what a dumpster fire
Arizona.
California is.
Yeah, and that's a I mean what's crazy about 140 is it takes the jungle primary, which has destroyed California.
Completely.
Ranked choice voting, which is destroying Portland and Alaska and any other place that's tried it,
Absolutely.
and puts them together.
yeah.
I mean, it's like the two
Yeah.
worst policies you could think of and make it one.
Yeah, and makes it worth.
And
15 new amendments to our state constitution.
Yeah.
Empowering both the legislature and the Secretary of State to make decisions who's on the ballot. It's unconscionable.
Well,
and any Republican who believes this is the way to fix whatever we feel is broken with our democracy in Arizona, all the money is coming from leftist groups, like supreme leftist groups, Soros-oriented groups.
Well, we know because like what's his name?
Democracy, business
Robert
for
Murdoch's
democracy. What a
daughter-in-law,
joke.
who's a hardcore lefty. I think her name is Catherine. Catherine Murdoch has funded more, $2 or $3 million towards this. I mean, this is a lefty play.
Yeah.
And
did you hear Charles Coughlin's saying it out loud the other day? How much money they've raised?
I think it's like $8 million.
$8 million. And you know who gets most of that money?
I don't know, because they had to get signatures.
Well, you know who
they
gets
have TV.
Well, you know who gets a good chunk of it.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's the whole play. If you blow up our electoral system here in Arizona, it's going to be the consultants who are going to make all the money. And that's the play.
I mean,
it's not about the policy. It's not about democracy.
That I oppose 140, but it is against my self-interest, because if 140 were to pass, I probably would do more consulting business.
Well,
but I don't like bad policy, and I've never done consulting
because you have
in that.
principles.
Yeah, I've always consulted with people that I believe in.
All right, enough of that.
So vote no on 140, and then
want to go around the horn?
Yeah. So I think Siscomani is going to be okay. I think Schweikert's going to be okay. I think we're going to hold the legislature, the House and the Senate. Rachel Mitchell will win. Jerry Sheridan will win. I don't know about the county recorder. I think that's one that's
you think that's up?
That might be up for grabs, just because it's gotten so much attention, and of the races that the left is engaged in, I feel like that's the one they're the most engaged in.
Yeah.
Which should tell you something about the importance of having a good county recorder, which we do, I believe, in Stephen Richer, but he's lost his primary.
Yeah, that's where we disagree, just slightly.
And
just a little bit, but we don't even get into that.
And then, Trump will win Arizona, and while I have said that I don't think that Lake can pull it off, if Trump wins big enough,
it could carry her over.
All
of a sudden, our friend Jim Ellis had a new polling that came out this morning. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, some have it within 4, some have it within 1. And that's an interesting development. And he would not be reporting on that if it wasn't true.
No, yeah. I mean, there's polling. I've seen polling. Look, there was a poll that came out a couple days ago that had
a couple months ago, we were like, this polling doesn't make any sense because it was all over the board. But now the polling gets a little bit better.
Yeah, and what I tell people about polls is that we get so focused on the actual number without any remembering that this is not an exact science, and that every poll has a margin of error.
Yes.
And so you can have a correct poll, and I'm doing air quotes for those that are listening, not watching. You can have a correct poll showing Trump winning by 8 and Lake winning by 1, as much as a poll that shows Trump winning by 2 and Lake losing by 5.
Yeah.
Those both can be correct because they can be within the margin of error.
Sample as well.
Yeah. So we have to wait and see. I would tell you, based on early ballot numbers, some polling that I've seen, and frankly, a lot of it is gut.
But you think Siscomani pulls it out?
I do.
District 6.
I think it's big. I actually think
be really
this
close.
Year. So last year, Siscomani.
She's spending money here.
Yeah, Siscomani got more vote. Had a larger margin than what Schweikert had. I think it's going to be reversed this time. I think Schweikert's going to win by a larger margin than what Siscomani.
Why do you think that?
I don't really know.
Okay, well it's scientific then.
It's not scientific. It's a gut thing. I think it's in part because
they are hammering.
It is because it's a presidential election, not a midterm election, and turnout among Republicans is pretty big in Scottsdale, and they just can't fathom. I just don't see them voting for Shaw, who is pretty damn liberal.
He's part of the squad.
He would be.
Yeah, he would be for sure.
Would be.
Yeah, and they've done a good job of framing him that way.
Yeah, we've talked about the legislature, and so
then the governor's race begins November 6th.
Well, at least sometime shortly after.
I mean, we're already hearing rumblings. I've already had several phone calls.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. We need to look at what happens, and we need to decide as a party: do we want to continue with the mess, or do we want to make it easier on ourselves?
Yeah.
That's
we
what it comes down
need really
to.
sound leadership in the party.
Yeah.
That can bring all these disparate people together who do have a common interest.
Yeah.
and that's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of work
and time.
And time.
It might take more than a cycle.
Yeah, it takes time. It takes somebody who's willing to spend their own time, some of their own money to go visit a lot of people and listen and talk and see how we can move forward.
Well, I mean,
because
what
the
happens,
governor's race in this state is going to be a hot race.
Well, it depends. Look, I will say
on both sides.
It will depend.
There will be
the thing that is going to be the most defining factor for the next governor's race here in Arizona is who wins the president. Because if Trump is the president, it's going to be harder for Republicans. If Kamala is the president, Hobbs may as well pack up.
Yeah,
because she's gone.
True,
she's gone. So, anyway, well, there's our first prediction. All right, buddy.
All right,
buddy.
Well, buddy. Yeah.
All right, folks.
Okay, everybody.
Go vote.
Go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers and go vote. See ya.
God bless.